Hello everyone, my name's Shannon and this is Lavender Sky. We are back in my reading journal today and oh my goodness, this is going to be a bit of a longer one because look how many books we have to update together. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think. Anyway, that list is going to help me keep track of what I need to do. And this is where we left off last time with Mayfly. We've got some covers that I've printed out now that I can add. We've already added the covers for here. So let's flip back through what we're going to be updating today. Like I said, there's a bit to go. Oh, I'm really excited to update the book bingo list. I feel like there's a few that we can add here. And yeah, we'll be adding them all into the book tracker. So much more to add to this front cover page here. It will look so good when it's filled out, guys. I'm really excited for you to see it all. But first off, let me update my book log with all the details of the books that I've read over the past couple of months. And yeah, boy howdy, there are many. So starting with the book that I finished quite a while ago now, I read Red, White, I cannot say this, I have tried so many times. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I finished this one all the way back at the start of June. I barely remember it, but anyway. Followed by that was The Secret Society of Irregular, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Finished that one in a day. That was on a plane ride back from Queensland to Perth, and that was on the 17th of June. Then I dived into another kind of witchy, wizardy type book. This was The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking by T. Kingfisher. I really enjoyed that one. Then I went for something a little bit different, Convenience Store Woman by Sakaya Murata. Then I went into maybe I think one of my first really spicy books, The Fool That Saved Us, a sapphic romance by Tamara Jaree. Then I dived into something that's been on my TBR for a little while. This is An Ember in the Ashes, part of the Ember Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. I followed that up very quickly with A Torch Against the Night. And then the last book that I finished that we'll be covering in this setup is another spicy fiction, Born Darkly by Trisha Wolfe. And this is part of the Darkly Madly duet, so only 2 books in there. So that is a very brief overview of what we'll be covering today. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Woo! Let's get into it. And I'm going to start by updating the cover page here. So some books from last time that I have printed now. So My Sister the Serial Killer, Mayfly and The Lottery. Then with the new books that we'll be covering today, Red, White and Royal Blue, A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, Convenience Store Woman, The Fool That Saved Us, An Ember in the Ashes, A Torch Against the Night, and Born Darkly. Looking very incredible, if I do say so myself. Okay, flipping over to the book and series tracker. Now, I think this is a lesson for next time, but I'm going to plan out the colours that I want to use for each month in advance because I hate the way that it's looking at the moment, and that's totally my fault. But 4 books finished in June, 2 books finished in July, and so far just the 2 books finished in August. And 21 books so far this year, which is not bad. Last year I reached 27 books for the year and my goal this year is 30. I'm feeling very optimistic about it. You know, like 21 books so far in August. I reckon I could read 6 more books by the end of the year to beat or to match where I was last year. And I definitely reckon I could do 9 more books between now and then to reach my goal of 30, but we'll see how we go. I also don't love the series tracker at the bottom. It was kind of an afterthought, but that's okay. I think it does the job for now, but something I'll definitely update and do better next year. Adding an Ember Quartet and the Darkly Madly duet. Just checking in on my branching out tree. I don't think any of the books that I've recently read fit into any of these categories. Mayfly could be a gothic horror, but I think I can do better. I think I can do more precise with that category. So flipping on over. Okay, I'm really excited to update this. This is the Buzzword challenge. I know this page has no title, but you know, it's August. We all know what this is by now. I'm adding My Sister the Serial Killer for Me or My in the title. I'm adding A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking for a book that contains instructions. And I'm adding A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches for a group or a club. And The Fall That Saved Us for This or That. Looking very healthy. Updating my A to Z book title and author challenge. Not a lot to add, although I have read a lot of books. They kind of all overlapped in their alphabetic titles, I guess. But we did add Red, White and Royal Blue for R. We did add Casey McQuiston for C. We did add T Kingfisher for T. And I think that might be it. Yeah. Flipping over to the page that I'm most excited for in my annual setups is the book bingo. Very pleased to add a book about witches to G5. Also very excited to add a book with queer characters up in I1. I kind of messed up here because then we go to a spicy book and I was tossing up between Born Darkly and The Fool That Saved Us. But then I kind of had this brainwave that Red, White and Royal Blue is a rom-com and read a rom-com is on my list. So for now, I'm just going to be stupid and I'm going to add The Fool That Saved Us to a spicy book because I'm preferencing the higher star rating for this one. But I am going to come back off camera and kind of tear all this up and change it around a bit. I'm adding Red, White and Royal Blue to read a rom-com. So that's going to go in the space O3. Then I'm moving The Fool That Saved Us into the book with queer characters. That's going to go into I2, and then this one, Read a Spicy Book, is going to go into I3, Born Darkly. But don't worry, you'll see it the next time that we do this reading journal update. For now, that's all you need to know. I did put these where they were on camera, but I did come back and change them later. It's all fine, it's all groovy, it's all dandy. Adding a 5-star read. I didn't want to put Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow up here because I've already used this in the book bingo. So this one's going with an Ember in the Ashes for a 5-star read. Finally, we can fill that one up. And this is what it's looking like so far. I'm feeling quietly confident that we might get bingo. Probably not the whole board, but at least one bingo could be made. Flipping over now to the book bracket challenge. So I'm just adding April and March. So that's Remarkably Bright Creatures and Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. I'm also adding the quarter 1 semi-finalist as Yellowface. The quarter 2 semi-finalists will be between these three. I'm going to choose the Irregular Witches to advance there. And then for July, I'm just adding the Ember Quartet as July's book of the month. Flipping on over, we are adding some titles to some spreads that we've already done. If you want to see these spreads being made in action, I will leave the video link for that one up here. And just adding in Mayfly. It's not my favourite spread, it wasn't my favourite book. Please ignore this, we are moving right along. Finally, let's get into the book setups. So starting with Red, White and Royal Blue. Now, I received this beautiful crepe paper from a package that I ordered a little while ago and I saved it, as you do. And I have a really good idea of how I want to use this. I've also got this beautiful postcard card here that's definitely fits the color category. And this little washi tape, very royal blue and kind of gives that little sparkle. I'm just starting here with this idea of maybe just decorating around the corners, but then I thought, you know what? This print would look really cute for a background to the whole thing. So, oops, I know I've kind of like already torn a corner off, but that's where the postcard's gonna come in clutch and just cover up that little mistake, which is totally fine. And I'm gonna cut this and cover the whole page with it, and it's gonna look really cute. So let's cut and glue, and because it is this crepe paper, I wanted to make sure it just laid really flat and there were no creases in it, because I'm going to be writing over the top of it. And yeah, doesn't it look adorable? I think it was a perfect fit for this rom-com. Smoothing it all out, and also trying very hard not to like tear the paper as I'm smoothing it out. There was one little tear over on the left side, but you can't hardly see it, it's so fine. I'm doing my little trick here that I like to do with card, which is just tearing the layers in between to make it a little bit thinner. This is just so that my reading journal doesn't get too bulky. It's fine if it does get bulky, but I find this little trick really helpful. I did rip it a little bit, but you know, I glue it down and you can't really tell. So again, it's all fine, and it covers up that other little boo-boo of tearing the corner of this background. And then I'm just going to add the title, the red, white, and royal blue. Oopsie, one thing I should have checked first was how it would go writing on this paper, because if it's going to be all smudgy and gross, or maybe it won't like write well, it might have like that waxy kind of film over the top of it, but I guess I better try it. It's too late to turn back now. So I'm just testing, can I write on this? And you know what? It turns out that I can. No smudging, it dries immediately. Oh my god, I'd love to see this. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together. That's perfect. Thank goodness. Okay, let's go and add this blue washi tape for a little bit of a border. I think it just helps to really frame the page. Although it looked kind of cute without it, it just needed a little bit of something to just, you know, bring it all together. And I think this worked out really well for the purposes that I was intending. I also used this washi tape to give the book cover a bit of a border as well, so it had something to kind of ground it to the page. So I'm just going to add a little piece behind it here to connect those two spaces. This turned out being incredibly fiddly work. I don't know why it was so hard, but I was just finding it so friggin' hard. Anyway, let me talk about this book whilst I'm doing this. So I felt like Red, White, and Royal Blue was a really cute book. It was okay. It was kind of like the first rom-com that I've read all year, and rom-coms aren't my favorite category of book to read. It was light and fluffy, it was fine, it was okay, it didn't really grip me, I didn't feel like it was a real page turner because it's just not my vibe. But anyway, I think this would have really connected with me more if I lived in the US, just because one of the main characters, Alex, it was centered around US politics. His mum is the president of the United States, which I think is really cool. Woman president, very progressive, we love that. But I don't connect super in depth with like all the workings of US politics. So there was a lot of stuff that just like, I don't know, I felt like it would have made more sense if I lived in that culture. It's all very like foreign politics to me. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But in terms of the story, we meet Alex, he's the son of the current elected president, and I think he's in his very early 20s. I did feel that Alex's journey discovering and accepting his queerness was, I don't know, it felt like there was just a lot of internalized homophobia about that. Like, he didn't want to believe that about himself because of what it would mean for him in political eyes. And I guess that's like really true. Like that is very grounded in reality. I feel like there's a lot of workspaces that aren't accepting of queerness these days, and US politics is probably a really big one. I did really love the budding romance with his partner Henry. I thought that was very sweet, and no spoilers, but I felt like the final climax of the story, again, it went a little bit over my head because of the heavy political spin of it all. I probably would have connected to that more, like I said, if I lived in America or was more connected to how American politics worked and how elections worked in the US. It's quite different from Australia, but it was a good story, good romance nonetheless, and I ended up giving this one a rating of 3 stars. Okay, moving along, we are talking about the Very Secret Society for Irregular Witches. I read this one on ebook on a plane on my way back from visiting my parents in Queensland. It's like a 5-hour plane ride from Queensland to Perth. And we were flying late at night, and I can't sleep on planes, so I just read this book, and I was very surprised that I started and finished it in one sitting. But there was not much else to do on the plane. Okay, I interrupt this setup to bring you all the purple things that I see that I have around myself at the moment. I'm definitely obsessed. I've got this purple incense burning at the moment. I've got my purple water cup and this really cute purple coaster that I have crocheted. Got my purple phone, of course, my purple phone case, even down to the purple scissors that I use in most setups. I also, looking around, have a lot more purple stuff in front of me right now. But anyway, back to the book setup. So I grabbed a lot of blue stuff here to kind of like connect with the colours in the book cover. I also pulled out a few of these archways to give a little bit of vibe for where Mika Moon lived for part of this story. It was very like foresty magical vibes. I'm also just going through these papers from Journal Say to see if I can find anything that gives like blue and witchy to me. I probably need to organize these a little bit better, but that's okay. I found these two. I'm gonna go with the one on the right. I thought she was very cute. I'm just gonna rip this to fit up in the top corner, and I'm also gonna rip this one because I really liked the lace on it, and I'm just gonna layer those two together. Please forgive me if this is more of a yappy setup than usual, but I am in a good mood and I have a lot to say today. What do I have to say about this setup though? I didn't really love... It's not my favorite setup. I feel like the elements that I've used are too different and didn't feel quite connected for me. Like, yes, the blue theme is there, but I don't know, I just didn't feel like it all vibed together in the end. But that's fine. It's trial and error sometimes with these setups. I'm not going to get it right every time. I did love little pieces of this. I loved the archway individually and the flowers behind it. I loved the little vignettes of the 2 doves and the little quote next to it. It says, "I'm really glad I met you." I really loved this little vignette here with these 2 stickers, the blue kind of ink spill with the quote that says, "Don't worry, be happy," and the blue teacup. Yeah, I thought they were individually things that looked really cute together, but overall, I don't know, I just don't feel like the setup for this spread really vibed with me. But anyway, into the book review. So Mika Moon is a witch in the modern day. She has an Instagram where she poses as a witch, and that's where this family who needs a tutor for some young witches finds her. There is a trope in this story of enemies to lovers romance. It was kind of cute, a little bit lackluster for me. I wasn't really sure why the man was moody in the first place, and he really kept referring to Mika as sunshine, so really driving home that trope of like dark and moody meets this bright kind of opposite. But anyway, it was a really fun story. Like I said, I read it all in one sitting, and there was a fun little plot twist at the end, still giving romantic comedy. I really loved the magic element of it all, and it was a really cute story. Definitely recommend for a little bit of cozy reading for anyone who's into slightly supernatural romance, and yeah, thought it was very nice. Moving on to A Wizard's Guide for Defensive Baking. I didn't really know what to expect when I first picked up this book, but what I do love is how this spread came together. So whilst I was not super happy with how the spread opposite came together, I was super happy with how this one looks in the end, so please bear with me as I make my way through this. Now, this was written by T. Kingfisher. This is my first dip into reading a book by T. Kingfisher, and I kind of loved it. Mona is the main character, and she's 14 years old, so the story was a little bit below my age range for main characters. I prefer to read like adult characters, but this was fine, I guess. So Mona finds herself in hiding when the head of the kingdom's law enforcement starts rounding up and possibly murdering all wizards, and Mona believes that if she can just make the queen aware, then she will put a stop to it. So that's kind of the premise for this story. I love the adventure that Mona finds herself on, and I really enjoyed the magic system of this story. So Mona's wizarding power is that she can manipulate bread, and she's a baker, so it's really fun to see what she does with that power. Incredible. Then I found in my scrap pile this cute little shopping list that I had saved from a magazine years ago, and I thought, oh, that's perfect, because kind of very much fits the purple theme that I've got going on here, and it definitely fits the like baking guide, the cooking guide. I can't remember what this is a shopping list for, but oh well, it's in here now. Then as we turn the page, I am making my July, August and September cover page, so part 3. And I have pulled out a couple of these bits and pieces to see what worked, and I ended up going with this really bright and colourful paper, the red, pinks, blues and yellows. And to go with that, I found this card, and I just wanted to cut it out. I didn't like both of those pieces together. It was either going to be the inside piece or the outside piece, so I put those apart. I'm just adding this really colourful background to it, and then I decided that the pink shoes, pink legs and bright shoes were going to be the main piece here. And then to make it a little bit more bookish, I've grabbed this book page, and I'm going to create a little bit of a border with the pages for the card to sit in front of, and yeah, that is super simple and easy. This was very much less stressful than my part 2 cover page, which took forever to come together. This one came together so quickly, and my camera died as I was doing this part, but I just stamped out in blue part 3, yeah, and I love it. And then I came back the next day and realized that this part 3 starts in July, and I did have one more book that I finished in June. So Convenience Store Woman, she gets her own little tip in here, and I've been inspired by convenience store items to create her page. So I'm starting with a brown paper bag that I have just sticky taped down to create this kind of flap. And another purple thing here I have is my little candy dish. Funny that. And I'm just grabbing out a blue wrapped candy that I'm gonna add to this page. So yay, little candy break. Yum. This was kind of like a nutty chocolatey, loved it. And like I said, I'm just using the wrapper to add to this page. And here's my box of stuff. This is a bigger box with my bigger junk in it. And I know I have a lot of like convenience store stuff in here. I grabbed out these couple of packages and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use the back of this one because I actually got this in Japan. This is like a Kirby blind box. And then I'm just going to use a couple of barcodes from those packages. That's convenience store stuff, right? Anyway, again, not a page that I super duper love, but it's giving what it needs to give. And I thought it was fun. And to write about this story, I'm just using this really bright pink, which, you know, is legible against the brown paper. But it brings together those elements of the blue and pink from the book cover, so I was really happy with how those things tied together. As for the story of Convenience Store Woman, from a therapy perspective, it was quite clear to me quite early on that this main character was quite clearly autistic and really loved her routine and structure and really thrived in the convenience store employee environment. And yeah, I really loved where this story went in helping Kiko, the main character, really solidify her identity and choose for herself what she wanted. In her life, there are a lot of people trying to kind of tell her what she should do or when she should be married or what job she should have. And I felt like it was really affirming by the end of it, where she decided to shrug off that pressure and choose for herself. Yeah, I love that about this story. Okay, so we're flipping back over now to the real part 3 setup. So we're moving into July now. First book that I finished in July was The Fool That Saved Us. And like I said before, this was a sapphic romance between 2 female main characters and very hot and heavy. I haven't really read a lot of spicy books. Just haven't really gravitated towards them, but this one was incredibly horny. Like, the sex scenes in this one were like, I don't know, for me it felt really off the charts. It's my first really spicy book. It was very graphic, it was very intimate, it's very hot and heavy. So if you're into that in your stories, absolutely go for it. I really loved the plot and the story around the relationship as well. I thought that was really sweet, this forbidden romance. So Cassielle is a young woman in her 30s who's left her family to seek her own path, and her family are demon hunters, and Cassielle is a Nephilim, so she is an angelic being, but not an angel, I guess half angel you would say. And she's on kind of a journey to accept her life choices and connect with her angelic part of herself, which is where these golden wings kind of come in to represent that. In this story, I think Cassielle is written as a darker skinned woman, but the only kind of angelic thing that I had in my junk was this this picture of this kind of angel fairy woman is from a box of incense that I have kind of ripped apart and have just kept this part of it. So, you know, do what you can when it comes to like keeping junk. And she owns a bookstore, so I've added this stack of books here to represent that too. Anyway, so like I said, forbidden romance between Cassielle, the Nephilim, and this succubus demon that kind of falls in love with her Avachu. And the story is about kind of fighting the opposing forces that don't want them to be together and finding a way that their love can exist. Again, a really beautiful story, incredibly horny, which we love. But yeah, the story kind of like, I don't know, Avachu's kind of motivations don't make sense a lot because it's not really spoken about. It's just kind of on the surface forbidden love. Like I get that there are reasons that angels and demons can't be together, but it's not really dived into very deeply, and how it's resolved isn't dived into super deeply either, but I don't know, spoilers I guess, it is resolved. They find a way to make it work, and that's really lovely. Yeah, Avachu the succubus, she just finds, again, like a little bit weird because Avachu has existed for like ever. She's a succubus that has existed for millennia, and she's meeting Cass, who has been alive for 30 years, and I don't know, she just falls in love with Cass for some reason. Out of everyone that she's ever met in the whole entire existence, millennia of existence, Cass just has something special about her that this demon succubus Avitu finds so desirable and worth sacrificing for. And I think if you don't think too much about like the details of it, that's really beautiful. And isn't that what we all kind of want? Just someone who is meant for us and someone who we are meant for. So yeah, this book gets 4 out of 5 stars. Love the horniness, loved the ending of the story. I thought it was really sweet. Moving on now, I'm going to do this double spread with 3 books, and those 3 books are going to be an Ember in the Ashes and a Torch Against the Night next to each other because they are part of the same series and I read them back to back, so they're going to share a spread back to back. And then I'm going to do something fun with adding Born Darkly, so a 3rd book onto this page. I really kind of had to think about it for a little bit about how I was going to split this full double page up into 3 parts, but I think it worked out really well. I think this is my favorite spread in the whole book so far. I really love how it came together. But yeah, just starting off with an Ember in the Ashes and a Torch Against the Night at the top here. I'm again just pulling from the book cover with the bluish kind of theme for a torch with these blue flowers. I had the same flowers in a kind of yellowish brown tone, so I'm using the same flowers for an Ember in the Ashes. I think for the next 2 book titles in the series I'll do the same thing if I can find these same flowers in my stash in matching book title covers. I also have these burnt pieces of paper here that I've used in the background and a little bit of, again, just the torn up book pages and a little bit of gold text across the top. And I think that's it for the kind of decorative setups. Yeah, I really like the simplicity. It's a little bit more pared back to what I do. We're not trying to do too much, but we are doing just enough, which is fine. Let me talk now about Born Darkly. So I really didn't love this book. It was such a frustrating premise. So London is the female main character. She's a prison psychologist and she falls in love with her client Grayson, who is a sexy serial killer. And like, yeah, I understand the fantasy of doing something so forbidden, but as a therapist myself, I have a bachelor's in psychology. I just didn't take the psychology route because it was too clinical for me, but that's fine, personal choice. However, entering a relationship with your client is like, it's just so inconceivable to me. I understand how it happens, and unfortunately it does happen in the industry, and like that's a huge problem if and when it does happen, because there are so many it's just like, as a therapist, you have to know that your client is meeting you in a space of trust and confidentiality, and they probably share things with you that they have never told anyone ever because of that trusted space that we hold together. And I guess it can be common for a client to develop feelings in that relationship, especially if they've never had space to be held like that. But yeah, it's just something that any good professional therapist or psychologist or counselor would know. The mismatch of power in this relationship just means that that's absolutely a no-go. Not fair. Anyway, I felt this was really jarring because London is portrayed as a highly accomplished expert in her field, and I almost DNA'd this book after the first 90 minutes because I was just like, okay, well, if she's so highly accomplished, she should know better and this shouldn't happen. But I did stick it out because, like, it is a book and it is fiction, it is fantasy after all of that. And yeah, it is a bit of a spicy book. It's a lot of build up between the sexual tension of London and Grayson. which does reach its climax, which we are all relieved to hear, and it leaves space for the second book to continue with London's story of kind of uncovering her dark past and, yeah, seeing if her and Grayson will live happily ever after. So this one got 2 stars for me. Like I said, I'd almost DNA'd it, but I didn't. 2 stars. If you don't want any spoilers for An Ember in the Ashes, flick ahead to this part on screen and you will miss me yapping about some key parts in this book. Leia, we are introduced to her as our female main character. She's a young scholar girl who finds herself tied to the Scholar Resistance after her brother Darren was stolen by the opposing force in this universe, the Masks. So Leia goes undercover to Blackcliff to spy on the Commandant, who kind of heads the school, and gather intel for the Resistance in exchange for the Resistance freeing her brother Darren from prison at Calf. At Blackcliff, she meets Elias. He's a mask in training who desperately wants to escape this violent life, but he is thrust into competing for the title of Emperor with his 3 fellow classmates in something called the Trials. And I really loved how their 2 stories kind of collide together towards the end. There is a very emotional pitched combat as part of the Trials, and by the end, Leia and Elias team up to escape the Empire. A little bit of a cliffhanger. Like I said, it's one of 4 books, and that's why I felt like I really needed to dive into A Torch Against the Night, just pick up from where we left off. Moving on now to A Torch Against the Night. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, just flick ahead to the time on screen, and yeah, then you will miss me talking about A Torch Against the Night. So this was a great follow-up to the first story. Sometimes with like series, the middle kind of books can not be as good as the first ones or the last ones in my experience. This one was a pretty good follow-up. I gave it 4 stars, whereas An Ember in the Ashes got 5 stars. So let me tell you a little bit about A Torch Against the Night. So we follow up to the first story. We pick up with Leia and Elias fleeing Blackcliff together. Elias has been fatally poisoned by his mother, the Commandant. They push on together. Their goal is to reach Calf so they can free Darren. They align with some tribal nomads led by Arfia Aranua, and they are met by Keenan from the Resistance and Izzy, who was an escaped slave from Blackcliff. Knowing that his death is coming, Elias is visited by the soul catcher Shiva of the waiting place, who will eventually pass his soul over. That's her job. He decides to leave the group to get to Calf quicker, knowing that he is on his death is kind of imminent, so he needs to hurry along. Yeah, thought it was a really good follow-up. A lot of stuff happened. It was very different than the first story, and I'm really excited to read the last book in the series and see how it all wraps up. Alright guys, now that we've finished all the setups, let's have a little flip through of the pages that we've set up today. I really loved how red, white and royal blue came together. I love this background element. I thought it was super cute. Like I said before, I didn't love how the Society of Very Irregular Witches came together. It's okay, not my favourite. I do, however, love the Wizard's Guide to Baking. I love the purples. I love the little flip out shopping list. I thought that's super cute. Yeah, one of my favourites for sure. Convenience store woman, I like how it's folded here. It's kind of nice. It does the job. My favourite part of this spread is absolutely the part 3 cover page here. I just really love the brightness and the colourfulness of it. I think it's really, really cute, really fun. I like these 6 wings that represent Cassiel's angelic wings here. They're a very nice addition to this page. And then my absolute favourite spread in this whole book is definitely these 3 here. So Ember in the Ashes and Torch Against the Night, the 2 in the same series, and then at the bottom, Born Darkly along the bottom. I really like how I made that work. And I think I'm going to do the same on the next page when I read the last 2 books in the Ember Quartet and the last book in Born Darkly. yeah, I just really love how the 3 fit on this double spread here. My absolute favorite. Let me know if you guys have read any of these books, what your thoughts or feelings are on them. And thanks for being here for this little bit extended reading journal update. I'm very excited to, hopefully reach my goal of 30 very soon and have this whole front page looking really gorgeous. And then I've got space on the back of those flaps for a stretch goal of 42. We'll see. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day or night wherever you are. Take gentle care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!